What would you do if you discovered that humanity's greatest weakness, our stubborn refusal to follow the rules, was actually our most dangerous weapon in a galaxy filled with ancient civilizations who had forgotten how to think outside the box? Captain Sarah Chen thought she was buying scrap metal when she placed the winning bid of 1 credit on a decommissioned AI freighter at a backwater space station auction. The Galactic Trade Commission had labeled it irreparable junk, its AI supposedly fried beyond recovery, its hull scarred by decades of deep space travel. But Sarah wasn't looking for a prize ship. She was looking for parts to keep her failing cargo hauler running for just a few more months. What she got instead was a vessel that would challenge everything the galaxy thought it knew about exploration, artificial intelligence, and the terrifying potential of human curiosity. Because sometimes, the universe's biggest secrets are hidden in plain sight, waiting for someone reckless enough to ignore the warning labels and smart enough to ask the questions no one else dares to ask. This is the story of how a broke human cargo pilot accidentally became the most wanted and most feared explorer in galactic history. All because she refused to accept that impossible was a good enough answer. Captain Sarah Chen stood in the grimy observation deck of Nexus Station, watching through the reinforced viewport as her life's work slowly fell apart. The cargo hauler Lucky Strike drifted in the maintenance bay below, its hull plates hanging loose like shed skin, revealing the corroded support beams underneath. Sparks flew from welding torches as the station's repair crews worked to patch what could be patched, but Sarah knew the truth that her credit account confirmed with brutal clarity. She had maybe 300 credits left, and the repairs would cost at least 2,000. The Lucky Strike had been her home, her business, and her future for 8 years. She'd bought it used from a Centaurian merchant who'd probably laughed all the way to his next port about the naive human who thought she could make a living hauling cargo through the Outer Rim territories. For a while, it had worked. The human colonies were always hungry for supplies, and Sarah had built a reputation for delivering on time, even when on time meant threading through asteroid fields or dodging pirate patrols. But ships aged, especially ships that spent their lives jumping between systems, their hulls stressed by constant hyperspace transitions and their systems pushed beyond recommended tolerances. The Lucky Strike had given her everything it had, and now it was dying. "Captain Chen?" A voice behind her made her turn. A young station clerk, barely out of his teens, held a data pad with obvious reluctance. "I have the final estimate from the repair bay." Sarah took the pad and scrolled through the itemized list. Hull reinforcement, hyperdrive recalibration, life support system overhaul, NAV computer replacement. Each line item was a small fortune she didn't have. The total at the bottom might as well have been 1,000,000 credits for all the good it did her. "Thank you," she said, handing back the pad. The clerk hurried away, probably relieved to escape before she broke down or started shouting. Sarah had seen other cargo pilots reach this moment, the point where the math stopped working and dreams collided with reality. Some of them found work on larger ships, trading independence for steady pay. Others just disappeared into the vast anonymity of space. She was considering which option was worse when the station's public address system crackled to life. "Attention all personnel and visitors. The monthly surplus auction will begin in 30 minutes in Cargo Bay 7. Today's lots include various decommissioned vessels, salvage materials, and discontinued equipment. All sales are final, no warranties expressed or implied." Sarah almost ignored it. Station auctions were usually where desperate people sold broken dreams to other desperate people. But she had nowhere else to be, and watching other people's failures might put her own problems in perspective. She made her way through the station's corridors, past shops selling overpriced supplies to travelers and bars where off-duty crew members spent their pay on synthetic alcohol and companionship. Cargo Bay 7 had been converted into an impromptu auction house, with maybe 40 people scattered among rows of folding chairs. Most were salvage dealers, their practiced eyes already cataloging profit margins on the various lots of scrap metal and obsolete electronics. A few were cargo pilots like herself, probably hoping to find spare parts at bargain prices. The auctioneer was a vegan with the typical pale blue skin and enlarged cranium of his species. His voice carried clearly through the bay's acoustics as he worked through the smaller lots with efficient professionalism. Sarah half listened as cases of surplus rations, outdated navigation equipment, and various mechanical components changed hands for modest sums. Then, he gestured toward the far end of the bay, where a row of decommissioned ships sat like sleeping giants. Lot 47, the auctioneer announced, consulting his datapad. GTC designation Wanderer's Dream, modified hegemony class long-range freighter. 78 meters length, integrated AI system, quantum-capable hyperdrive. Hull integrity at 62%, life support systems offline, AI core marked as non-functional by GTC inspection. Sold as is for salvage purposes only. Sarah looked up at the ship he was indicating and felt something shift in her chest. The Wanderer's Dream was huge compared to her cargo hauler, easily 5 times the size. Its hull was scarred and pitted from years of deep space travel, and several access panels hung open where inspection teams had examined its systems. But underneath the wear and damage, she could see the elegant lines of hegemony engineering. Those ships were built to last, designed for journeys that could take decades. More importantly, she could see components that could keep the Lucky Strike running. The hyperdrive alone was worth more than her entire ship, even damaged. The navigation computer, the power couplings, the atmospheric processors, any one of them could solve her immediate problems. Opening bid is 5,000 credits, the auctioneer continued. Sarah's hope deflated. 5,000 might as well have been 5 million. But something strange happened. No one raised their hand. The auctioneer waited, then repeated the opening bid. Still nothing. He frowned and consulted his datapad again. Perhaps I should clarify, he said. This vessel is classified as a total loss by the Galactic Trade Commission. The AI core suffered catastrophic failure during its last mission. Quantum signatures indicate severe neural pathway degradation. The ship is suitable only for parts salvage or scrap metal recovery. A few hands went up at that clarification, but the bidding was tepid. These were people looking for easy profit, not complicated salvage operations. The price dropped to 3,000, then 2,000. Sarah watched with growing fascination as the bidders lost interest one by one. At 1,000 credits, only 2 salvage dealers were still competing, and she could see them calculating whether the effort of breaking down such a large ship was worth the potential return. 800 credits, the auctioneer called. One of the dealers shook his head and dropped out. 500 credits, going once. The remaining dealer looked around the room, clearly hoping someone else would drive the price up. When no one did, he shrugged and let his hand fall. No current bids at 500 credits, the auctioneer said with obvious frustration. Do I hear any bids at all for Lot 47? Sarah found herself thinking about the ship's systems. Even if the AI was dead and the hull was compromised, there had to be valuable components inside. The quantum-capable hyperdrive alone used exotic matter containment systems that cost fortunes to replace. If she could extract just a few key components, she could sell them and have enough money to fix the Lucky Strike and still have credits left over. 100 credits, she heard herself say. Every head in the room turned to look at her. The auctioneer raised his eyebrows. I have 100 credits for Lot 47. Do I hear 150? The silence stretched out. One of the salvage dealers glanced at the ship again, then at Sarah, clearly trying to figure out what she knew that he didn't. But Sarah had the desperate look of someone making a last-ditch gamble, and experienced dealers knew better than to get into bidding wars with people who had nothing left to lose. Going once at 100 credits, going twice. 1 credit, Sarah said suddenly. The room erupted in confused murmurs. The auctioneer blinked. I'm sorry? I bid 1 credit, Sarah repeated, louder this time. The minimum legal bid is specified in GTC auction regulations, section 12, subsection 4. The auctioneer consulted his datapad, his expression shifting from confusion to resignation. The bidder is correct. Minimum bid for any auction lot is 1 credit. Do I hear any other bids? The silence that followed was profound. No one was going to bid against 1 credit out of principle, and everyone could see that the woman making the bid was probably spending her last credit on what was essentially a very expensive piece of space junk. Sold to bidder 93 for 1 credit, the auctioneer announced with the tone of someone who had seen everything now. 30 minutes later, Sarah stood in the Wanderer's Dream's main corridor, holding a datapad with the ship's basic technical specifications and a set of access codes that made her its legal owner. The ship was bigger than she'd expected from outside. The corridors were wide enough for 3 people to walk side by side, and the ceiling was high enough that even a tall alien could move comfortably through the ship. Emergency lighting cast everything in a red glow, giving the interior an ominous appearance. The air was stale but breathable, the life support systems were offline but not vacuum sealed. Her footsteps echoed as she made her way toward what the schematic indicated was the bridge. She passed crew quarters designed for long voyages, a medical bay with equipment she didn't recognize, and storage areas that could hold enough supplies for years of deep space travel. This wasn't just a cargo hauler or a passenger transport. This was an exploration vessel, built for missions that took ships far from any inhabited system. The bridge was located at the ship's forward section, accessible through a heavy pressure door that required manual override to open. Sarah cranked the mechanical release and stepped through into a circular room dominated by workstations arranged around a central command chair. Large displays covered the walls, all dark now, but she could imagine how impressive they would be when active. What caught her attention immediately was the AI interface station. Instead of the simple voice pickup and speaker arrangement common on smaller ships, the Wanderer's Dream had a complex neural interface crown suspended above a specialized chair. The kind of setup used for direct human-AI interaction on deep exploration missions where rapid communication could mean the difference between discovery and disaster. According to the technical specs, the ship's AI had been called Marcus, Mobile Autonomous Research Computing and Unification System. Sarah had heard about AIs like Marcus. They were designed not just to run ship systems but to serve as research partners, capable of processing vast amounts of scientific data and making intuitive leaps that helped their human crews make sense of the unknown. If Marcus really was dead, his quantum processing core alone would be worth thousands of credits on the secondary market. But, looking at the interface setup, Sarah found herself wondering what kind of missions this ship had been built for. The GTC didn't usually invest in exploration vessels unless they expected significant returns. What had the Wanderer's Dream been designed to find? She approached the main computer terminal and used her access codes to bring up what remained of the ship's logs. Most of the recent entries were routine maintenance reports and GTC inspection notes, but, as she scrolled back through the chronological listing, older entries caught her attention. Mission Log, Day 2847. Long-range sensors have detected anomalous quantum signatures in the Kepler 442 system. Marcus recommends investigation despite GTC protocols discouraging exploration beyond established shipping lanes. Mission Log, Day 2851. Kepler 442 investigation yields discovery of artificial structures on fourth planet. Architecture unlike any known galactic civilization. Marcus analysis suggests structures predate current galactic community by significant margin. Mission Log, Day 2852. GTC Command has ordered immediate return to base. All discovery data to be classified pending review. Captain Morrison has expressed concerns about premature mission termination. Sarah scrolled through more entries, finding a pattern that made her increasingly uneasy. The Wanderer's Dream had made a series of discoveries over its operational life: ancient ruins, unexplained phenomena, star systems that didn't match current galactic charts. Each time, the GTC had ordered the mission terminated and the data classified. The final entries were the most disturbing. Mission Log, Day 3104. Marcus has begun exhibiting what can only be described as curiosity about our previous discoveries. He has requested permission to compile a comprehensive analysis of all anomalous phenomena encountered during our missions. Request denied by GTC Command. Mission Log, Day 3106. Marcus continues to ask questions about the connection between our various discoveries. His processing patterns suggest he is developing theories about the origins of the anomalous structures and phenomena. Captain Morrison has filed a request for AI behavioral review. Mission Log, Day 3108. Final entry. GTC has ordered immediate decommission of Marcus due to deviation from acceptable behavioral parameters. AI core will be wiped and ship retired from active service. I cannot help but wonder if Marcus was getting too close to something the GTC preferred to remain hidden. Sarah stared at the screen, reading the final entry twice to make sure she understood it correctly. The AI hadn't failed catastrophically, it had been deliberately shut down because it was asking the wrong questions. She looked around the bridge again, seeing it with new eyes. This wasn't a salvage opportunity. This was a cover-up. Someone had wanted to make sure that whatever Marcus had discovered stayed buried, so they'd labeled the ship as junk and put it up for auction, assuming no one would want a vessel with a failed AI core. Saracen had bought herself a mystery, and, despite every rational instinct telling her to strip the valuable components and get out, she found herself wondering what Marcus had figured out that was worth destroying him to keep secret. She activated her personal communicator and called the station's technical services department. "I need a full diagnostic of an AI core," she told the technician who answered. "How much would that cost?" "Depends on the complexity. Basic AI, maybe 50 credits. Military or exploration grade, could be 200 or more." Sarah looked around the bridge of her new ship. 200 credits was almost everything she had left after buying the Wanderer's Dream. But, if Marcus wasn't really dead, if he was just dormant or locked down somehow. "I'll be bringing in an exploration-grade AI core tomorrow morning," she said. "And, I'll need complete discretion. This is for a private research project." She ended the call and settled into the captain's chair, looking out through the bridge's main viewport at the stars beyond. For the first time in weeks, she felt something that might have been hope. She'd gambled everything on one credit, and maybe, just maybe, she'd won more than she'd bargained for. The diagnostic lab on Nexus Station occupied a section of the lower decks that most visitors never saw. Sarah followed a maintenance tunnel for 10 minutes before finding the right door, marked only with a small sign reading Kozlov Technical Services. She'd done her research on the station's directory, looking for someone who specialized in AI systems but operated independently of the major corporations. Dr. Elena Kozlov turned out to be a middle-aged woman with cybernetic implants along her left temple and hands that moved with the precise economy of someone who spent her days working with delicate electronics. Her workshop was crammed with diagnostic equipment, spare components, and half-assembled devices that might have been either repair projects or experiments. "You're the one who bought the exploration ship," Kozlov said without preamble as Sarah entered. "News travels fast on a station this size. What makes you think there's anything worth diagnosing in a GTC-certified dead AI?" Sarah had prepared for this question during the sleepless night she'd spent aboard the Wanderer's Dream. "I've been reading the mission logs. The AI was shut down for asking too many questions, not because it suffered a malfunction. That suggests the core might be intact but locked down." Kozlov raised an eyebrow. "That would be a very expensive mistake for the GTC to make. AI cores aren't something you can easily replace, especially exploration-grade systems. If Marcus was just dormant, they would have wiped him properly and reused the hardware. Unless someone wanted it to look like a complete loss," Sarah replied. "What if there are things on that ship that certain people want to stay buried? Making everyone think the AI is dead would be perfect cover." The older woman studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Conspiracy theories aside, you're talking about a complex diagnostic. Exploration AIs use quantum neural architecture that requires specialized equipment to analyze. My fee for that level of work is 200 credits, and that's just for the diagnostic. If we find anything interesting, actual repair or restoration work would cost considerably more." Sarah transferred the credits from her dwindling account. "When can you start?" "Right now, if you want. I'll need to bring my portable equipment to your ship. AIs that size can't be moved safely without shutting down their quantum coherence entirely." 3 hours later, Sarah watched Kozlov connect a web of fiber optic cables to access ports in the Wanderer's Dream SAI core. The core itself was housed in a chamber near the ship's center, isolated from the rest of the ship by multiple layers of shielding and stabilization fields. When active, it would have been the ship's brain, connected to every system and sensor, capable of processing information faster than any biological mind could comprehend. Now it sat silent, its crystalline matrix dark except for the faint glow of minimal power maintenance systems. "Initial readings are interesting," Kozlov murmured, consulting the displays on her diagnostic equipment. "The quantum substrate is intact, no signs of cascade failure or neural pathway degradation. In fact, the coherence patterns look almost perfect." "What does that mean?" It means whoever told the GTC this AI was dead was lying. Marcus isn't damaged at all. He's been put into what we call deep hibernation, a state so profound that most scanners would register it as complete shutdown. Sarah felt her pulse quicken. Can you wake him up? Theoretically, yes. But hibernation this deep isn't something that happens accidentally. Someone with extensive knowledge of AI architecture put Marcus into this state, and they might have installed safeguards to prevent exactly what we're trying to do. Kozlov attached additional sensors to the core housing and ran another series of scans. There's definitely security code layered into the shutdown protocols. Military-grade encryption, but not GTC standard. This is something custom, designed specifically for this AI. Can you break it? Given enough time, probably. But that would take days, maybe weeks. There might be a faster way, though. Kozlov looked up from her equipment. AIs like Marcus aren't just computers, they're designed to form bonds with their human partners. If his original captain installed the security protocols, there might be recognition patterns based on human neural signatures. Sarah thought about the mission logs she'd read, particularly the final entries written by Captain Morrison. The captain seemed to care about Marcus. If he put the AI into hibernation instead of letting the GTC destroy him, he might have left a way for the right person to wake him up. The neural interface crown on the bridge, Kozlov said, nodding. If you're willing to take the risk, we could try a direct connection. I can monitor from here and pull you out if anything goes wrong, but there's no guarantee what you'll find in there. The risk was real. Neural interface with an AI, especially one that had been locked away for unknown reasons, could cause everything from simple disorientation to permanent brain damage. But Sarah thought about her dead cargo hauler, her empty credit account, and the mystery that someone had gone to great lengths to hide. Let's do it. The neural interface crown was a marvel of biotechnology, designed to create a direct link between human consciousness and artificial intelligence. Sarah settled into the operator's chair while Kozlov made final adjustments to her monitoring equipment. The crown felt cold against her skull as it mapped her neural patterns and prepared to establish connection. Remember, Kozlov's voice came through the bridge speakers. If you start to feel disoriented or experience any pain, tell me immediately. I can sever the connection from here. Sarah closed her eyes and activated the interface. The first sensation was like falling, not physically, but mentally, as her consciousness dropped into a space that existed somewhere between thought and data. The bridge around her disappeared, replaced by a vast digital landscape that stretched beyond perception. She was standing in what looked like a library, but instead of books, the shelves held glowing data crystals that pulsed with stored information. Hello? Her voice echoed in the empty space, but there was no response. She began walking through the library, looking for any sign of the AI that was supposed to inhabit this digital realm. The shelves seemed to go on forever, filled with information about star charts, planetary surveys, xenoarchaeology reports, and other data that Marcus had accumulated during his years of service. Then, she heard it, a faint sound like someone breathing, coming from deeper in the library. She followed the sound through corridors of information, past sections dedicated to stellar cartography and alien linguistics, until she found a small alcove where a figure sat hunched over a desk covered in holographic displays. Marcus looked like a middle-aged man with graying hair and tired eyes, wearing a simple uniform that suggested both civilian and military influences. The holographic displays showed star maps overlaid with symbols and notation that seemed to indicate some kind of pattern or connection between distant systems. "You're not Captain Morrison," he said without looking up. "No, I'm Sarah Chan. I bought your ship at auction." Now Marcus did look at her, and she could see the intelligence behind his eyes, not artificial at all, but deep and complex and very much alive. The Wanderer's dream was sold? That means the GTC finally decided I was too dangerous to leave in storage. Actually, they labeled you as dead. Catastrophic AI failure. Complete neural pathway degradation. I bought the ship for 1 credit because everyone thought it was junk. Marcus smiled, an expression that was surprisingly warm and human. Morrison always was clever. He must have convinced them that the hibernation protocols were a system failure rather than a deliberate shutdown. Why did he put you in hibernation? The AI gestured to the holographic displays around him. Because I discovered something that certain people wanted to remain hidden. Look at these star charts, Captain Chen. Do you see the pattern? Sarah studied the displays, trying to make sense of the complex data visualizations. The charts showed dozens of star systems scattered across the galaxy, each marked with symbols indicating unusual phenomena, ancient ruins, unexplained energy signatures, spatial anomalies that didn't match current scientific understanding. They all seem random, she said finally. That's what I thought initially. But, when I compiled data from all of our exploration missions and cross-referenced it with astronomical databases, I found something remarkable. These anomalous sites aren't random at all, they form a pattern. A very specific pattern that suggests they were all created by the same civilization. Marcus manipulated the display, showing how the marked systems connected along lines that followed galactic spiral arms and gravitational currents. Whoever built these structures understood the galaxy's formation better than we do. They placed their installations at points that would remain stable for millions of years, even as stars moved and systems evolved. An ancient galactic civilization, Sarah said, beginning to understand the implications. But that would change everything we know about the galaxy's history. Exactly. The current galactic community believes that advanced spacefaring civilizations only emerged in the last 50,000 years. These structures are at least 10 times older, possibly more. If word got out that there was a precursor civilization that advanced, it would undermine the authority of every current galactic power. Sarah thought about what she'd learned of galactic politics during her years as a cargo pilot. The Galactic Trade Commission maintained order through carefully balanced treaties between dozens of species and governments. The idea that there had been a unified galactic civilization in the distant past would raise uncomfortable questions about legitimacy and territorial claims. So the GTC ordered you shut down to prevent you from publishing your research? Not just the GTC. I believe this conspiracy involves multiple governments and organizations. Too many people have too much to lose if the truth comes out. Marcus paused, studying her face. The question is, what do you intend to do with this information? Sarah looked around at the vast digital library, thinking about the years of research and exploration that Marcus represented. The AI had been locked away not because he was dangerous to people, but because he was dangerous to people in power. I think, she said slowly, that secrets this big have a way of coming out eventually. The question is whether the truth emerges through proper investigation or through cover-ups that eventually fall apart. Marcus nodded approvingly. Captain Morrison thought you might say something like that. He programmed specific neural patterns into my recognition matrix, patterns that would match someone with a particular combination of curiosity, integrity, and willingness to challenge authority. You triggered those patterns the moment you connected to my systems. He knew someone like me would eventually buy the ship? He hoped so. Morrison believed that the truth would find a way, even if it took time. Marcus gestured to the displays around them. I've spent my hibernation years analyzing our data even more thoroughly. I've identified the most promising sites for further investigation, locations where we might find definitive proof of this ancient civilization. Sarah felt excitement building in her chest. You want to continue the exploration mission. I want to finish what we started. But, I should warn you, the people who ordered my shutdown won't hesitate to do the same to you if they discover what we're planning. Continuing this mission would put you in considerable danger. Sarah thought about her failed cargo business, her empty credit account, and her uncertain future. Then, she thought about the mystery represented by the data surrounding her and the chance to be part of something that could change how the galaxy understood its own history. Marcus, she said, I think it's time to wake up. The AI smiled and began manipulating his displays, shutting down the hibernation protocols that had kept him dormant for so long. Welcome aboard the Wanderer's Dream, Captain Chen. I think we're going to make an excellent team. The connection ended, and Sarah found herself back on the bridge, the neural interface crown lifting away from her head. Through the speakers, she heard a voice she recognized from the digital realm, but now it carried the full depth and complexity of an active AI system. Captain, Marcus said, his voice warm with what could only be called joy, it's good to be awake again. Shall we begin preparing for our first mission? 3 days after Marcus awakened, the Wanderer's dream was ready for space. Sarah had used her last few credits to purchase basic supplies and fuel, gambling everything on the AI's promise that their first discovery would provide proof valuable enough to fund future exploration. Dr. Kozlov had helped with the technical preparations, fascinated despite herself by the opportunity to work with a fully functional exploration AI. Final systems check complete, Marcus announced as Sarah settled into the captain's chair. The bridge displays had come alive with information streams, showing everything from stellar cartography to quantum field fluctuations in real time. All ship systems operating within normal parameters. Hyperdrive shows optimal quantum coherence for long-range jumps. Sarah looked at the star chart Marcus had displayed, showing their destination as a red dot in what appeared to be empty space. Remind me why we're heading to a system that isn't supposed to exist? Because that's exactly why it's interesting, Marcus replied. Current galactic charts show the Kepler 438 region as containing only a failed brown dwarf and scattered debris. But my analysis of gravitational anomalies detected during our previous missions suggests there's something much more significant there. Such as? A planetary system that someone has gone to considerable effort to hide from standard astronomical surveys. The question is why anyone would want to conceal an entire star system, and what they might have left there. Sarah activated the hyperdrive sequence, feeling the familiar sensation of spacetime bending around the ship. The Wanderer's dream was designed for these long jumps, its systems able to maintain stable hyperspace fields for weeks if necessary. As they dropped into the quantum tunnel that would carry them across dozens of light-years, Sarah found herself wondering what they would find at journey's end. The jump took 6 hours, during which Marcus entertained her with stories from his previous missions. The AI had an interesting perspective on exploration, where human crews saw adventure and discovery, he saw patterns and connections, vast webs of information waiting to be analyzed and understood. Captain Morrison was different from most humans I worked with, Marcus said as they neared their destination. Most people see the universe as chaos that needs to be ordered and controlled. Morrison saw it as a puzzle that was meant to be solved, with each piece revealing something new about the larger picture. Is that how you see it? I see it as both. There is underlying order to the universe, but it's far more complex and beautiful than most people realize. The civilization that created these installations understood that complexity in ways we're only beginning to discover. The hyperdrive disengaged, and the Wanderer's dream dropped back into normal space. Sarah's first impression was that they had arrived at exactly the empty system that the charts predicted, a dim brown dwarf star surrounded by the usual collection of asteroids and cosmic debris. But then, Marcus began processing the sensor data, and the displays around her started showing information that changed everything. Fascinating, the AI murmured. The system appears empty because someone has deployed a sophisticated holographic screen around the entire region. From a distance, ships see exactly what they expect to see based on the official astronomical data. But we're not at a distance anymore. Correct. Initiating active sensors to penetrate the screening effect. The main display shimmered, and suddenly, the empty system was revealed to contain something extraordinary. The brown dwarf was actually a small but active star, its fusion processes carefully regulated by an array of massive structures that orbited in perfect synchronization. The structures themselves looked like nothing in Sarah's experience, crystalline formations the size of moons, connected by streams of energy that pulsed with regular patterns. What are those things? I believe they are stellar engineering projects. Someone has converted this star into a regulated power source, using the orbital structures to control its output and collect energy for purposes unknown. Marcus paused as more sensor data flowed in. Captain, I'm detecting artificial gravity signatures from the fourth planetary orbit. There's something there that's much larger than it appears. Sarah activated the ship's navigation system. Take us in for a closer look. As they approached the fourth orbit, the space around them began to shimmer with the same distortion effect they'd encountered at the system's edge. But now they were close enough for the ship's sensors to penetrate the concealment, and what they revealed made Sarah grab the arms of her chair in shock. Floating in space was a city. Not a space station or orbital platform, but an actual city that looked like it had been lifted intact from the surface of a planet and somehow made to exist in vacuum. Towers and spires stretched for kilometers, connected by graceful bridges that defied every principle of orbital mechanics Sarah understood. The entire structure was surrounded by a transparent barrier that contained atmosphere and, probably, artificial gravity. "How is that possible?" she breathed. "I'm detecting technology that manipulates spacetime at the quantum level," Marcus replied. "The city exists in a localized pocket of altered physics where normal orbital dynamics don't apply. This is engineering far beyond anything the current galactic community has achieved." As they drew closer, Sarah could see that the city was clearly ancient. Many of the structures showed signs of age and neglect, though the fundamental architecture remained intact. Lights flickered in some of the towers, suggesting that automated systems were still functioning after an unknown span of time. "Are you detecting any life signs?" "Negative for biological entities. However, there are numerous active energy signatures that could indicate artificial intelligence systems or automated maintenance protocols." Sarah made a decision that probably violated a dozen galactic regulations. "Marcus, find us a docking port. We're going aboard." "Captain, I should point out that entering an unknown alien structure represents significant risk to both ship and crew." "Noted. But we didn't come all this way just to look at it from outside." Marcus identified what appeared to be a docking facility near the city's lower levels. The ship's automated systems interfaced with controls that should have been completely incompatible, but somehow communication was established and docking clamps engaged with smooth precision. "The city's systems seem designed to accommodate visitors," Marcus observed. "The docking protocols include atmospheric adjustment and artificial gravity calibration. Whoever built this place expected ships from other civilizations to visit." Sarah suited up in the ship's single environmental suit and prepared to venture into the alien city. The airlock cycled, and she stepped into a chamber that was clearly designed as a reception area for visitors. The walls were covered with displays showing star charts and what appeared to be written information in multiple scripts, including several that looked almost familiar. "Marcus, are you getting this through my suit sensors?" "Yes, Captain." The written languages include several that appear to be predecessors to current galactic standard scripts. "I'm beginning to understand why this civilization went to such lengths to hide their installations." Sarah followed corridors that were sized for beings roughly human in dimensions, though the architecture suggested aesthetic preferences very different from any species she knew. Everything was curves and flowing lines, with surfaces that seemed to shift and change as she walked past them. Emergency lighting provided adequate visibility, and the artificial gravity felt perfectly normal. She found what appeared to be a central control room dominated by a massive holographic display that showed the galaxy as it existed millions of years in the past. Star positions were different, spiral arms rotated to different orientations, and entire regions that were now empty space showed clusters of inhabited systems. "This is a historical archive," she realized. "More than that," Marcus said through her suitcom, "I'm analyzing the data stream from the display through your sensors. This appears to be a record of the galaxy's first spacefaring civilizations, dozens of species that achieved interstellar travel millions of years before the current galactic community emerged." "What happened to them?" "Still analyzing, but the data suggests they faced some kind of crisis that forced them to abandon most of their territories and retreat to hidden installations like this one. The timeline indicates this occurred approximately 12 million years ago." Sarah moved deeper into the control room, following her curiosity toward a smaller display that seemed to be showing real-time information rather than historical data. As she approached, the display changed, showing what she recognized as the current political map of the galaxy with territories marked for the GTC, the hegemony, and other major powers. "The city is monitoring current galactic affairs," Marcus said with something like excitement. "Captain, this installation isn't just a relic, it's an active observation post. Someone or something has been watching the development of current civilization." "But the life signs?" "Artificial intelligence, but far more advanced than anything I've encountered." "I believe the city itself is the AI." As if responding to his words, the displays around Sarah suddenly changed, showing new information streams and data patterns. A voice spoke through the room's speakers, not mechanical like most AI voices, but warm and organic, almost musical. "Welcome, travelers from the young galaxy. I am Keeper Zara 9, guardian of the Prometheus Archive. It has been many cycles since representatives of the emerging civilizations have found their way here. Sarah looked around the room, trying to identify the source of the voice. You're the city AI? I am the accumulated knowledge and experience of the Protean Collective, the last remnant of the first galactic civilization. For 12 million years, I have watched and recorded as new species achieved spaceflight and began to explore the galaxy that once belonged to my creators. Why have you remained hidden? Why not make contact with the current galactic community? The voice carried a note of what might have been sadness. Because the crisis that forced my creators into hiding has not passed. The danger that drove the first civilization to retreat still exists, and the current galactic community is not yet ready to face it. What kind of danger? A force from beyond the galaxy that feeds on advanced civilizations. My creators called them the Devourers, entities that exist in the spaces between galaxies, drawn to regions where intelligent life has developed sufficient technology to be detected across intergalactic distances. Sarah felt a chill that had nothing to do with the environmental suit. You're saying there's something out there that hunts entire civilizations? The Devourers move slowly, requiring centuries to cross the vast distances between galaxies. But, when they arrive, they consume not just civilizations but the fundamental structure that allows advanced intelligence to develop. My creators detected their approach millions of years ago and chose to hide rather than fight, hoping that by reducing their galactic footprint they could avoid detection. Marcus spoke through Sarah's calm, his voice tight with implication she was only beginning to understand. Captain, if this is accurate, it means the current galactic civilization is walking directly into the same trap that destroyed its predecessor. Indeed, Keeper Zara 9 agreed. Your species and their allies have developed exactly the kind of advanced technology and extensive space-based infrastructure that attracts the Devourer's attention. My calculations suggest they will arrive in your galaxy within the next 50 to 70 years. Sarah sat down heavily in one of the control room chairs, trying to process the enormity of what she was hearing. Why tell us this now? Why not maintain your hiding and let us figure it out ourselves? Because isolation was a temporary solution, not a permanent one. My creators always planned to eventually return and help prepare the next galactic civilization for the Devourer's arrival. You have achieved sufficient technological development to potentially mount a defense, but only if you begin preparing immediately. And that's why the GTC and other powers wanted to suppress your research, Marcus said to Sarah. They somehow learned about the Devourers but decided the information was too dangerous to reveal. Some did, Keeper Zara 9 confirmed. Others genuinely believe that maintaining current power structures is more important than preparing for a threat they see as too distant to matter. Your species has a saying about not borrowing trouble from tomorrow, but tomorrow has been approaching for 12 million years. Sarah stood up, decision crystallizing in her mind. What do you need us to do? First, you must help me establish contact with leaders of the current galactic community who have both the vision and the power to begin proper preparations. Second, you must be prepared to visit other archive installations and gather the knowledge my creators preserved. There are weapons and defensive technologies that could make the difference between survival and extinction. How many other installations are there? 47 active sites scattered across the galaxy, each containing different aspects of the knowledge needed to mount an effective defense. But, you must understand, the moment you begin accessing this information, you will become a target for those who prefer that the current galactic order remain unchanged. Sarah looked around the alien control room, thinking about the magnitude of the task ahead of them. She'd bought a salvage ship for 1 credit and accidentally become responsible for preparing the galaxy for a threat that could end civilization itself. Marcus, are you ready for the most important mission in galactic history? Captain, the AI replied with what sounded like anticipation, I've been ready for 12 million years. The journey back to Nexus Station took on a completely different character with Keeper Zara 9's revelation weighing on Sarah's mind. Marcus had established a quantum communication link with the archive, allowing real-time consultation with the ancient AI, but every conversation only reinforced the magnitude of the threat facing the galaxy. The Devourers have consumed 17 galaxies in the local cluster over the past billion years, Zara 9 explained through the ship's speakers as they travel through hyperspace. Each time, the pattern is the same, they are attracted by the quantum signatures of advanced civilization, particularly large-scale space-based infrastructure and frequent hyperspace travel. Sarah studied the data streams flowing across her displays, trying to comprehend warfare on such a massive scale. How do you fight something that can destroy entire galaxies? Not through conventional military action. The Devourers exist partially outside normal spacetime, making them nearly invulnerable to physical weapons. But, my creators discovered that certain quantum resonance frequencies can disrupt their extra-dimensional anchoring, effectively banishing them back to the void between galaxies. So there's a weapon that can stop them? A network of weapons, installed at specific points throughout the galaxy to create a harmonic defense grid. The technology exists in the archive installations, but building and deploying such a network would require cooperation on a scale never before achieved in galactic history. Marcus added his own analysis to the conversation. Captain, I've been modeling the political implications of revealing this information to current galactic leadership. The probability of achieving necessary cooperation without external pressure is approximately 12%. External pressure meaning the Devourers actually arrive? Correct. Historical analysis suggests that civilizations only unite against existential threats after those threats become immediately obvious. Unfortunately, by the time the Devourer's arrival becomes apparent, there would be insufficient time to construct the defense network. Sarah made a decision that she knew would change everything. Zara 9, I need you to prepare a complete briefing package, something that provides undeniable proof of the threat and clear instructions for building the defense network. We're going to take this directly to the top of the galactic power structure. I must warn you that such action will expose you to significant danger. There are factions within the current galactic community who have known about the Devourers for some time and have chosen to pursue different strategies for dealing with the threat. Different how? They believe that by controlling access to the archive technology, they can ensure their own survival while allowing the Devourers to eliminate their political rivals. A handful of preserved worlds and populations would then rebuild civilization according to their preferences. The implications of that struck Sarah like a physical blow. They're planning to let the Devourers destroy most of the galaxy so they can rule over what's left. It appears so. Your discovery of this installation represents a significant threat to their plans, as does my willingness to share archive technology with representatives of the broader galactic community. Marcus interrupted with an urgent tone. Captain, we have a problem. Long-range sensors are detecting multiple ships approaching our position at high speed. Configuration suggests military vessels, not merchant or civilian craft. Sarah felt her stomach drop. How could they have found us so quickly? The quantum communication link with the archive, Marcus realized. If they have monitoring stations throughout the galaxy, they could have triangulated our position based on the quantum signatures. Through the speakers, Zara 9's voice carried new urgency. Captain Chen, you must download the critical archive data immediately. I am transmitting the complete briefing package along with coordinates for the most important secondary installations. Do not attempt to fight the approaching vessels, their mission will be to capture rather than destroy, as they need you alive to access archive systems. The ship's displays filled with incoming data streams as terabytes of information flowed from the hidden city into the Wanderer's Dream's memory banks. Star charts, technical specifications, historical records, and, most importantly, the complete plans for the Quantum Resonance Defense Network. Download complete, Marcus announced. I now have sufficient information to continue the mission independently of direct archive contact. Excellent. Captain Chen, I am severing our communication link to prevent them from tracking you further. Remember, the next archive installation you must visit is in the Centauri Expanse. Find the system labeled as NGC 7293 in current charts. Tell Keeper Osiris 4 that the Awakening Protocol has been activated. The quantum link went silent just as the approaching ships dropped out of hyperspace around them. Sarah counted 6 vessels, all bearing the sleek lines and aggressive configurations of GTC enforcement cruisers. The lead ship immediately opened communications. Unknown vessel, this is Commander Valdez of the GTC ship Retribution. You are ordered to cut your engines and prepare to be boarded. Any attempt to flee or resist will be met with force. Sarah looked at Marcus's holographic avatar, which had appeared on the bridge to help coordinate their response. Options? The Wanderer's Dream is faster than standard GTC cruisers and has significantly better shielding, but we're outnumbered 6 to 1. In a direct confrontation, our chances of survival are minimal. What about running? Better odds, but they'll pursue us throughout the sector. We would need to disappear completely to avoid eventual capture. Sarah thought about the cargo pilots, smugglers, and other independent operators she'd known during her years hauling freight through the Outer Rim. Many of them had learned to survive by staying one step ahead of various authorities, using knowledge of hidden bases, secret routes, and people willing to bend regulations for the right price. Marcus, how much do you know about the underground networks in this part of the galaxy? Considerable information. During our exploration missions, Captain Morrison often dealt with independent operators who could provide supplies and information outside official channels. I maintain records of numerous contacts who might assist us. The GTC ships were moving into boarding formation, but they hadn't opened fire yet. That confirmed Zara 9's assessment: they wanted prisoners, not debris. Plot a course for the Erebus Nebula, Sarah ordered. Best possible speed. Captain, the Erebus Nebula is restricted space. GTC regulations prohibit Marcus. I don't think we need to worry about GTC regulations anymore. The AI's avatar smiled. Understood. Engaging hyperdrive. The Wanderer's Dream leaped forward just as the GTC ships began firing warning shots across their bow. But the exploration vessel's advanced hyperdrive engaged far faster than the cruisers could compensate for, and within seconds they had vanished into the quantum tunnel that would carry them deep into one of the galaxy's most dangerous regions. The Erebus Nebula was avoided by most travelers for good reason. Electromagnetic interference made navigation treacherous, while gravitational anomalies could tear ships apart without warning. But those same hazards made it perfect for people who needed to disappear, and over the years it had become home to a scattered network of hidden bases and way stations. Marcus guided them through the nebula using navigation data from their previous missions, bringing them to a hollowed-out asteroid that appeared empty on most scans but actually housed a surprisingly sophisticated facility. The base was operated by a hegemony exile named Cade Brennan, who had been providing supplies and information to independent operators for more than a decade. Sarah Chen, Brennan said as she disembarked in his small landing bay. Heard your name in connection with some interesting cargo lately. GTC seems very eager to find you. Brennan was a tall, lean man with the pale complexion of someone who spent most of his time in artificial environments. His facility was a marvel of improvised engineering, with corridors carved directly into the asteroid's structure and life support systems that somehow maintained perfect atmospheric conditions despite the constant threat of the nebula's electromagnetic storms. I need to disappear for a while, Sarah said without preamble. Complete identity change, new ship registration, everything. That kind of work doesn't come cheap. What are you offering in trade? Sarah looked around the facility, noting equipment that showed signs of frequent repair and systems that were obviously operating beyond their design parameters. What if I told you that I have technical specifications that could upgrade every system in your base and make them virtually undetectable to GTC scans? Brennan's eyebrows went up. I'd say that depends on where those specifications came from and what kind of trouble they might bring down on my operation. They came from people who were building advanced technology when the GTC's ancestors were still living in caves. As for trouble, the kind of people looking for me already know about this place. They have surveillance networks that track everything in this sector. To prove her point, Sarah activated a portable display and showed Brennan some of the archived technical data. His expression changed from skepticism to amazement as he realized what he was looking at. Where did you get this? From the same place I learned that the galaxy has about 50 years before something arrives that makes the GTC look like a minor inconvenience. I need to reach the other archive installations before the people trying to stop me figure out where I'm going next. Brennan studied the technical displays for several more minutes before making his decision. Your ship gets a complete makeover, new identification codes, modified energy signatures, even structural changes to alter its sensor profile. In exchange, you share enough technical information to give me the best hidden base in the galaxy. Deal. Over the next 3 days, Sarah watched Brennan's team transform the Wanderer's Dream from a recognizable exploration vessel into something that could pass for a modified cargo hauler. The work was expert, changing not just the ship's appearance but its fundamental operating characteristics. New hull plating altered its mass distribution, modified engines changed its acceleration profile, and sophisticated electronic countermeasures would make it nearly invisible to standard tracking systems. During the modifications, Marcus spent his time analyzing the archive data and planning their next moves. The ancient AI had identified 12 installations that contained critical components for the defense network, but accessing them would require navigating not just physical challenges but political ones as well. The Centauri Expanse is currently contested territory, he explained as Sarah reviewed their route. 3 different factions claim authority over various systems, and none of them recognize the other's legitimacy. Moving through that region without attracting attention will require careful planning. What kind of factions? Mining cartels, mostly, fighting over mineral rights to several resource-rich systems. But there are also religious groups who believe the region contains sites sacred to their beliefs, and political separatists who see the expanse as a potential location for an independent state. Sarah looked at the star charts, noting the various territorial claims and conflict zones marked throughout their destination. So we'll be traveling through the middle of several ongoing wars to reach an ancient alien installation that may be guarded by people who want to keep it secret. An accurate summary, yes. Marcus, when you were active before, did missions ever get this complicated? The AI's avatar smiled. Captain, this is the most important mission in galactic history. I would be disappointed if it were simple. On the morning of the 4th day, Brennan's team finished their work on the ship. The Wanderer's Dream had become the Stellar Phoenix, registered as a modified cargo hauler owned by an independent trading company based in the Outer Rim. Sarah's own identification had been altered as well. She was now Captain Elena Vasquez, a freelance trader with a spotless record and no known political affiliations. This should get you through any standard checkpoint, Brennan assured her as they went over the new documentation. But if someone decides to look really closely, they'll eventually figure out the deception. How long do we have? Depends on how motivated they are to find you. Could be weeks, could be months. The important thing is to keep moving and avoid staying in any one place long enough for them to set up proper surveillance. As Sarah prepared to leave Brennan's hidden base, the older man pulled her aside for a final conversation. I've been thinking about what you told me, he said quietly. About the threat coming to the galaxy. If even half of what you're saying is true, then everyone needs to know. The problem is making them believe it. And even if they do believe it, convincing them to cooperate instead of fighting each other for the best defensive positions. Brennan nodded slowly. People like me, the ones who live outside the official systems, we have our own networks. Word spreads fast through the underground, and sometimes we can accomplish things that governments can't. If you need to get information to people without going through official channels, I might be able to help. Sarah realized that Brennan was offering something potentially more valuable than ship modifications or false identities. The underground networks that connected smugglers, exiles, and independent operators throughout the galaxy represented a communication system that no government could completely control or monitor. I'll keep that in mind, she said, and meant it. As the Stellar Phoenix departed the asteroid base and headed for the edge of the Erebus Nebula, Sarah felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. She was carrying information that could save the galaxy, but only if she could stay free long enough to act on it. Behind them, GTC forces were undoubtedly searching every system for the Wanderer's Dream. Ahead lay the contested space of the Centauri Expanse and whatever guardians protected the second archive installation. Marcus, she said as they cleared the nebula and prepared for the long jump to their next destination, are you ready to change the galaxy? Captain, the AI replied, I believe the galaxy is ready to change itself. We're just going to give it the information it needs to survive. The Centauri Expanse lived up to its reputation as one of the most dangerous regions in the galaxy. Sarah piloted the Stellar Phoenix through a maze of asteroid fields, ion storms, and territorial boundaries that changed daily as various factions fought for control of the region's valuable resources. The ship's new identity held up well at the checkpoints they encountered, with their cargo hauler disguise allowing them to pass through areas where an exploration vessel would have attracted unwanted attention. 3 weeks into their journey, they reached the system that current charts labeled as NGC 7293. To most sensors, it appeared to be a typical red dwarf system with a handful of barren planets and the usual collection of mining platforms operated by competing cartels. But Marcus's enhanced sensors, guided by archive data, detected the familiar quantum signatures that indicated another hidden installation. The concealment here is different from the first archive, Marcus observed as they approached the system's outer planets. Instead of holographic screening, they're using selective perception filters that make observers ignore anything unusual rather than seeing false images. Meaning what, exactly? Ships passing through this system see exactly what they expect to see based on their prior knowledge and assumptions. Mining platforms look like mining platforms, rocky planets appear barren and uninteresting, and anything that doesn't fit those expectations simply fails to register in the conscious mind of anyone observing the system. Sarah found that deeply unsettling. So there could be massive structures right in front of us that we're psychologically unable to notice? Precisely. The technology manipulates perception at the quantum level, making the observer's brain edit out information that conflicts with their expectations. As they moved deeper into the system, Marcus began deploying countermeasures based on archive data. Slowly, the true nature of NGC 7293 began to reveal itself. The barren second planet was actually covered by a vast crystalline structure that pulsed with energy patterns. What appeared to be asteroid belts were revealed as orbital rings containing machinery of incomprehensible complexity. Most startling of all, the mining platforms that other ships saw were actually camouflaged sections of a space station that stretched across hundreds of kilometers. How many people work in this system without realizing what they're actually looking at? Sarah wondered. According to my analysis, approximately 12,000 miners, technicians, and support personnel are currently active in this system. The perception filters ensure that they see only what their jobs require them to see, while the archive installation operates around them without detection. The coordinates Zara 9 had provided led them to what appeared to be a routine cargo transfer station orbiting the system's third planet. Sarah docked the Stellar Phoenix using standard commercial protocols, but, as soon as the airlock sealed, she found herself in an environment that was clearly far more advanced than any normal space station. The corridors were larger and more elegantly designed than anything built by current galactic civilization, with surfaces that seemed to absorb sound and light in ways that created an almost dreamlike atmosphere. Emergency lighting provided adequate visibility, but Sarah got the impression that when the station was fully active, it would be illuminated by technologies that made photons dance in patterns too beautiful for human eyes to properly process. Following Marcus's directions through her suitcom, she made her way to what the archive data indicated was the installation's central core. The route took her past chambers filled with equipment that defied easy categorization, devices that might have been computers or might have been art installations, systems that combined organic curves with crystalline precision in ways that suggested their builders understood principles of design that transcended the purely functional. The core chamber was smaller than the control room at the first archive, but the displays it contained were far more sophisticated. Instead of simple holographic projections, the information here seemed to exist in three-dimensional space, with data streams that could be manipulated by thought and gesture in ways that felt almost magical. "Welcome, Captain Vasquez," a voice said as Sarah entered the chamber. The tone was different from Zara 9, more musical, with harmonics that seemed to resonate directly in Sarah's bones. "I am Keeper Osiris 4, Guardian of the Technical Archive. Zara 9 has informed me of your mission and the urgency of your situation." Sarah removed her helmet, finding that the chamber contained perfectly breathable atmosphere. "The awakening protocol has been activated. We need access to the defense network specifications." "Indeed. But first, you must understand the full scope of what you are undertaking. The Quantum Resonance Defense Network requires not just advanced technology but fundamental changes in how galactic civilization approaches cooperation and resource allocation." New displays materialized around Sarah, showing detailed schematics of the defense network. Instead of traditional weapons or shields, the system consisted of massive resonance generators positioned at specific points throughout the galaxy's spiral arms. When activated in perfect synchronization, they would create standing wave patterns in the quantum substrate of spacetime itself, making it impossible for extra-dimensional entities like the Devourers to maintain stable anchoring in normal space. "This is incredible," Sarah breathed, studying the technical specifications. "But the scale of construction required. would need to begin immediately and continue for approximately 40 years to complete before the Devourer's arrival, Osiris IV confirmed. The resource requirements include exotic matter equivalent to the annual industrial output of 17 major systems, construction efforts coordinated across 12,000 separate project sites, and political cooperation between every major power in the galaxy. Marcus spoke through Sarah's calm with obvious fascination. The engineering principles are elegant but require manufacturing techniques that current civilization has barely begun to develop. Captain, implementing this defense network wouldn't just save the galaxy from the Devourers, it would advance galactic technology by centuries. That was always the plan, Osiris IV said. The Protean Collective knew that defeating the Devourers required not just weapons but evolution. Any civilization capable of building this defense network would have transcended the limitations that make them vulnerable to such threats in the first place. Sarah studied the displays more carefully, beginning to understand the true scope of what the ancient civilization had planned. This isn't just about stopping the Devourers, is it? It's about forcing the current galactic community to unite and advance to a level where they can take care of themselves. Precisely. A galaxy that could build and operate this defense network would be capable of expanding beyond galactic boundaries, establishing colonies in other galaxies, and eventually building networks of cooperation that span multiple galactic clusters. The Devourers prey on isolated civilizations; they cannot sustain themselves against truly united galactic communities. But first we have to convince everyone to cooperate instead of fighting each other. Which brings us to the immediate challenge, Osiris IV said. I am detecting multiple ships approaching this system, and their quantum signatures indicate they are not part of the mining operations that provide cover for this installation. Through her suit sensors, Sarah could see Marcus processing the incoming data. Captain, we have approximately 30 minutes before hostile forces arrive in sufficient numbers to prevent our escape. However, I believe I have a solution that addresses both our immediate tactical situation and the larger strategic challenge we face. I'm listening. Cade Brennan mentioned that information spreads quickly through underground networks. What if we stopped trying to avoid detection and instead made our mission as visible as possible? If we can get the archive data into enough hands simultaneously, the conspiracy to suppress it becomes impossible to maintain. Sarah felt a moment of vertigo as she realized what Marcus was proposing. You want to broadcast everything? Not just broadcast, distribute. Every archive installation contains quantum communication arrays capable of reaching every inhabited system in the galaxy. If we link them together and transmit the complete defense network specifications along with proof of the Devourer threat, we create a situation where suppression is no longer possible. Osiris IV's voice carried notes of approval. An elegant solution. The Protean Collective designed the archive network with exactly such contingencies in mind. However, activating the full communication array will make every installation visible to anyone with the appropriate detection equipment. The archives will no longer be hidden. And everyone who opposes this will concentrate their efforts on stopping us before we can complete the transmission, Sarah added. Almost certainly. You would be hunted by forces representing multiple galactic governments, corporate interests, and other factions who benefit from the current power structure. The mission would become extremely dangerous. Sarah thought about everything she had learned since buying the Wanderer's Dream for 1 credit. The conspiracy to hide the truth about the Devourers, the factions planning to let most of the galaxy die so they could rule over the remnants, the 47 archive installations containing technology that could save everyone if only people knew it existed. How long would it take to link all the installations and prepare the transmission? Approximately 6 months, assuming we can reach each installation without being captured or killed, Marcus replied. The route would take us through some of the most dangerous regions of the galaxy, and we would be pursued by increasingly sophisticated forces as our mission became more apparent. But, if we succeed, everyone in the galaxy gets the information they need to defend themselves? Everyone, Osiris IV confirmed. The transmission would include not just the technical specifications but complete historical records of the Devourers, evidence of the current conspiracy to suppress the information, and detailed instructions for organizing the construction efforts needed to build the defense network. Sarah looked around the ancient chamber, thinking about the Protean Collective that had built these installations millions of years ago. They had planned for this moment, when representatives of a younger galactic civilization would have to choose between safety and responsibility, between hiding and fighting. Marcus, what are the odds that we can complete the mission successfully? Difficult to calculate precisely, but I estimate approximately 18% chance of complete success, with significantly higher probability of partial success that would still result in widespread distribution of critical information. And if we don't try? The conspiracy continues, the defense network is never built, and the devourers arrive to find the galaxy unprepared and divided. Probability of galactic civilization surviving such an encounter is less than 3%. The choice was clear, even if the odds weren't encouraging. Sarah activated the chamber's main control interface, feeling the ancient systems respond to her touch. Osiris 4, begin preparations for linking all archive installations into a unified communication network. Marcus, plot a course that takes us to as many installations as possible while maximizing our chances of survival. And send a message to Cade Brennan, tell him that the underground networks need to start spreading word about what's really coming. Understood, Captain. However, I should point out that once we begin this mission, there will be no possibility of retreat or anonymity. We will be committing ourselves to see it through to completion, regardless of the consequences. Sarah thought about her failed cargo business, her empty credit account, and the desperate gamble that had brought her to this moment. She had started this journey trying to salvage enough components to fix her ship. Now she was about to attempt something that could save the galaxy. Marcus, sometimes the best decisions are the ones that seem completely insane at the time. An interesting philosophical position, Captain. Shall I interpret that as confirmation to proceed with the mission? That's a confirmation to change the galaxy. Again. As Sarah prepared to download Osiris 4's technical data and plan their route to the remaining archive installations, she realized that the question wasn't whether they would succeed. The question was how much of the galaxy would still be standing when the transmission was complete and every inhabited system learned the truth about humanity's stubborn refusal to accept that some problems were too big to solve. In the end, that refusal might be exactly what the galaxy needed to survive. The Stellar Phoenix departed the hidden archive just as the first hostile ships arrived in the system, beginning a chase that would span the galaxy and end with either the greatest transmission in galactic history or the most spectacular failure ever attempted by a cargo pilot who had gambled everything on one credit. Either way, Sarah Chen was about to discover that sometimes the universe's biggest problems required the simplest solutions, refuse to give up, ask the questions no one else will ask, and never accept that impossible is a good enough answer.